famous banner signature line is at this point, which I feel is, we should just have it emblazoned on our mirrors in the morning when we wake up. You may think you are in the music making business, you are in the relationship making business, okay? Always remember that. The music, it's the tail wagging the dog. The quality of your music is extremely important, and obviously we wouldn't be having any of this conversation if, alongside of all that self-worth, you weren't doing your best to write the best music that you can. And only you know what the definition of that is, right? It's a very personal definition. We're assuming that everybody here is devoted to writing the best music that they can. Good, solid music. But it's how you connect with other people, whether you do it online or in person, both. It's how you do that dance and how you let other people into your heart, okay? Your heart. That's the place where the notes come from, too. They don't come from here. They only come from here when you're stuck and you've got to figure out the goddamn transition from measure 47 to bar 53, right? That's when this kicks in. Like, oh God, I've got this, I think I want to go there, but I have no idea how to get there. That's when you start using everything you've learned, your serious craftsman toolkit of composing tricks to get yourself over that hump. But most of the time, if you're doing your job right, your writing comes from here and a lot lower, okay? That's where it's going to come from. And that is also where the connection to others comes from, right? It doesn't come from here. You know, when we meet each other or when we meet other people, it's a heart thing. It's some level of a human mammalian connection. Pheromonal, right? It's we're mammals, right? This is what we are. This is what we do. That's what music is. And music is the most primal thing, right? We're shoving sound waves at people, hoping that they're going to feel something. We love it when we get that gran casa going and they feel it in their sternum. We also love it when we get the tear ducts going, if we can write something that just really moves somebody. That's why we do this, is to elicit emotion. Sometimes the emotion is anger, sometimes it's melancholy, sometimes it's God knows what, sometimes it's tears or love. It's anything, it's all the things that we can't say with words, right? That's why we do music, because we can't express ourselves with words, even those of us who are rather loquacious. You know, I'm pretty wordy, and I still write music, first and foremost. So the pheromonal connection and the relationships you build in the community that you reach out and create by joining things, by showing up at things, by smiling. Just smile. That's all you have to do. Just smile, and you'll find that opens every single door. I sound like a Disney thing. I go, just smile, and the world opens up for you. But it's true. I mean, you know, it's so goofy sounding. Another Disney character, but it's absolutely true, right, Roger? I mean, look at him smiling. You know, you got a great smile. I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, if you walked into a room, you could do a test, right? You could walk into go to a party or a room with people, and if you had your choice between going toward the person who's sitting there like this, or going to the person who's sitting there kind of pleasantly smiling, you are most likely going to gravitate to talk to the person who's sitting there looking approachable. Bye, see you later, Ross. You're most likely going to gravitate to the person who looks inviting. Looks do matter, and I don't mean looks like Hollywood looks. I mean looks. I mean visage. Looks matter. When I look at people, most of the time, I hope I'm looking at them in a reasonably welcoming way, where I'm interested in what they're saying, and I'm wanting them to feel comfortable approaching me if we haven't already met. And I've noticed this. I love to watch people. I'm fascinated by people, and I watch people, and I see some people go, oh, my screensavers. These are all my photos. I didn't even know that it kicked in. Wow, this makes the talk so much more interesting. I'm also an amateur photographer. Hi. Are you here? Are you coming to sit?
Yes, this is Peyton.
Hi, I'm Alex. It's so nice to see you. Hi. I love your hat. That's great. So we're talking about community and plugging in and all of this. We're still in the warm and fuzzy. I haven't even gotten into the nitty-gritty of business and all this. So you want to invite people into your world. And the same way that we do it as human beings, by smiling, by looking relaxed, as opposed to, what I was saying when you walked in, Megan, was that you watch people and you see some people going down the street and they are grimacing, right? They look just miserable, they look awful. Or you see somebody standing around at a party and they just look just so unhappy and mean. And those are the people I will tend to come up to to see if I can engage them and bring them out of their shell or something. But some people really give out a vibe, right, where you don't want to even go near them. We don't want to be that person. And the corollary is really quite remarkable with music, that I think just, if we are the best advertisers and promoters of our own music by talking to people about our music, by meeting other instrumentalists who might play our music, etc., if we're the best diplomats, ambassadors, that's the word, we're the best ambassadors for our work, well, in order to get to your music, they actually have to get to you first, right? That you could have the most brilliant piano sonata ever, better than Beethoven, just brilliant. But if you're not approachable and if you can't make the connection with someone to the point where they want to open the cover and see what's inside, it's not going to be as likely that it will get done as quickly. I'm not saying that grumpy people don't get their music performed. I know quite a number of grumpy, successful composers, but most successful composers are really nice, warm people. Most of them that I know are actually really friendly people that you want to sit down and have a beer with. Most of them. Most of them are not grumpy and unapproachable. And when you think about it, think about the ones that you admire and think about their personalities and how they come across. For the most part, these are very approachable, personable colleagues and contemporaries of ours. And I think there's much to be considered in that relationship between us as humans and our music, and making the bridge of how are people going to connect with your music. I don't think we talk about this stuff very much, No one ever talked to me about it. And, this brain dump, as I joke, that I'm giving you, it's just stuff that truly comes out of my experience of just living a life as a composer, just trying to connect my music and my passion to other people. One of the key things is the passion also. I'm going to wrap up with this warm and fuzzy stuff and get to the nuts and bolts, but I want to end with the passion. I remember very, very well, I had an extraordinary experience. The great conductor Eric Leinsdorf, the late Eric Leinsdorf, when I was one of my 2 summers at Aspen Music School, he was a guest conductor there, and I was very lucky. I was one of, I think, 5 young composers that got to have a little private master class with him. Just sort of, I don't even remember specifically what we were talking about musically. I do remember there was a big Beethoven score in front of us, and that we were all sitting under a tree. I remember that, we were outside. And it was just incredible, and it's Eric Leinsdorf. And I remember at one point he looked up, and I'm going to paraphrase because I was 16, so I don't remember the exact words, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said very pointedly to all of us, I was the youngest one, and I think the oldest person might have been 25, and he said, basically, this is a very, very difficult pursuit, and you have to love it, otherwise don't do it. You have to love it more than anything in the world. You've heard this speech in various, ways, I'm sure, before. But he's saying this to us and looking at us rather sternly. You have to know, you have to love it, and then he said you have to know you're very, very good at it. Otherwise, don't do it. Very sobering words, because he's saying 2 things: passion and self-reflection. And I'm passing that on to you. Passion is first and foremost self-reflection about what's the nature of the work you're doing, where will it take you, how can you grow. This is very, very important as well. And the combination of the 2 will lead to great happiness when you really put them together, when you really think about it clearly. I think that we are always growing as artists. It never stops. We're trying to get better and better and better at what we do. I'm grappling with a piece right now where I'm just like slamming my head against the piano like all the time, because it's like figure out, why can't I do better, because I know what I'm striving for, but I know it's not quite there in the passage that I'm working on. That's joy and angst all at once, right? But that's why we do this, because we're striving to communicate something that is very much us. So, so the passion thing, I mean, I want everybody, you don't have to raise your hands or anything, but I just want you to each think about, are you really passionate about what you're doing? And if you are, keep doing it. If you do it well and enjoy it, but maybe could do a whole bunch of other things, I will say to you frankly, consider doing those other things and always being a composer. You will always be a composer no matter what, always. You know, I could be working as a plumber downtown, and that doesn't mean I'm any less of a composer, right? One thing, you know, it's not either or. You're always going to be a composer, but deciding the way you pursue that composing takes a great deal of self-reflection about, you know, on so many levels, and being brutally honest with ourselves, and that's not a bad thing. No matter what we do. I mean, I would be giving this kind of a speech if I was talking to a room full of MBA students and we were talking about business, and it's really no different, because it comes down to personhood. The notes come from a person. Each one of you is a fantastic individual human being. That's where the notes come from. And this gets us fully round robin to our self-worth concept that I opened with. That the notes come from you as a person. So developing your personhood, being part of a community, being a good person in the community, being good to yourself, developing that person is very, very important to developing the composer side of it. They're all related. Where are we? Oh, we're in that was a dead flounder, a little flounder in the garden. And that's a garter snake I rescued from the road. Oh, this is so fun that this is kicking in.
Is there a picture of Squim in there?
Is there a picture of Squim? Actually,
yeah,
I do.
Lavender.
Oh, that's the lavender farm on Salmon Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's funny because from my house, if you guys, how many of you have been to Salmon Island? Yeah. So I live right next to American Camp, so I'm facing south. So I actually swim across the way across the water, splash. So one of my hobbies. Oh, this was so cool. He's eating an octopus, folks. That's a big seal eating an octopus, and the octopus was like wrapped around the seal. The octopus lost that fight. And I have a lot of foxes. So one of my passions is photography. I'm not a particularly good photographer, but I'm an avid amateur photographer, and I have a blog. Let's talk about community a little bit. I'm going to just jump around a little bit before I get into the next thing, which is preparedness. But lime kiln, famous. But here, one of the things that I use the net for, of course, is, well, let me back. I use the net in a lot of different ways, simultaneously. And there are a lot of ways to reach people. And one of them is the standard thing, which you still need to have. Facebook is not a substitute. A website where people can get in-depth information about you and listen to tons of excerpts of it. You know, every one of your pieces should have an excerpt. We're going to talk about all this stuff in detail. I'm jumping ahead, but it has to do with community and what you're seeing behind me. I have a website. I got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, I've got it, right? But one of the things that I started in 2006, was a blog called Notes from the Cellar. And I started when I lived in Malibu, and I have continued it all these years. And it's one of the longer running blogs out there actually at this point, because a lot of bloggers kind of give up because it takes a little bit of work. But I want to tell you about how I use the blog. I love nature and I live in nature, and I am surrounded by remarkable sights that literally show up in front of my desk. So one of the ways that I kind of pretend to have a pheromonal, real connection with the outside world that does not live on Salmon Island. One of the ways I reach people, and I post some of this on Facebook too, is with my photography, with nature. Because, not everybody has that in front of their desk. I took that picture while sitting at my desk. Okay? Not everybody has that. They have, like, I think in New York I had a pigeon once, that landed on my windowsill. Not everybody has foxes showing up on their doorstep the way I put them up on Facebook from time to time. And so what I do, I use the blog in a way where the website is a very warm and fuzzy but very informational place to go for what I do. And I'm saying all this as examples for you guys to be thinking about how you use the web. I'm not saying this as any self-aggrandizement. I just want to use it as an example. I use the website it features a lot of my photography too, but the point of the website is to take you on a guided tour of all the fun, groovy things I've been doing professionally. That's what a website is for, and make it as easy as possible for strangers to find exactly what they're looking for. If a performer wants bassoon music, make it really easy for them to find that. If somebody needs your program bio because they're performing something, make it really easy for them to get that, down the line. We'll talk more about that later in the day. But, so that's the brass tacks part of it. But because I feel so strongly that it's our personality that brings people into the fold of what we're doing as musicians and composers, the blog has been invaluable. I really very rarely talk about music on the blog. If I do, it's in passing. It's usually, I traveled here and man, I'm tired from just this. And I wake up and there's this sea urchin in front of me on the deck waiting for me, eating sushi. It's like I'll say it in passing in the context of what I've been doing, but the focus really is actually on my life on the island, which has nothing to do with music. And that has been a wonderful way to bring people into the fold of what makes me tick. Each one of you has something that makes you tick. Each one of you has something that's interesting about you that, that if you were at a party talking to somebody, you might end up talking about or whatever. And so, I'm like this crazy chick who lives on an island with a lot of wildlife. And so that's something that's really interesting to me, and I love to write about it, these short little things, and talk about it. And so I use the blog as a way and you can all go to the blog, and you'll just get the idea. That's the coolest bug. I found that in Victoria. So anyway, you get the idea that there are many ways to reach people that aren't about your music, but it is about your music. Because that bug is where some of my music comes from, It's not always about, I think the worst way to advertise is to always be sending out emails saying, the emails we all get, come to my concert, yada, 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 etc. Or so-and-so is playing my piece, yada, yada. I first of all, I never send out any emails at all. But even if I post things on Facebook, a lot of the time, it's not that. It's sort of more this. And that, I find, draws people in. So anyway, we'll get back into the web stuff. But I wanted to just talk about community in terms of what it is to draw people into your humanness and your personhood. See, everything I'm saying, it is all related. I know I sound like I'm going in a million directions, but there's one big overriding theme for the past 40, what time is it? 40 minutes I've been talking, or whatever it's been. So, with that, now let's get to the nitty-gritty of a career as a composer. Now that you know your personhood and your passion. You have great self-worth, you're writing music that means something to you, it's authentic, ta-da! Okay, we're there already. Isn't that was easy, all that in just 40 minutes. Amazing, just add water and stir. So we got all that
Alex,
down.
there's a clock over there if you want to.
Oh, great. Oh, it has been an hour. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. It was an hour. Those are the otters in front of my house, and that one's got a gunnel eel hanging out of its mouth.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So have you ever had other passions that you tried to pursue?
Yes, but not that I tried to pursue for money. In the 90s, I was very, 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 very active with the American Civil Liberties Union, and which has nothing to do with music, unless you want to go for, First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
But freedom of speech. But beyond that, I was the vice president, actually, of the American Civil Liberties Union of Southern California, which is the nation's largest chapter, 30,000 people. And I was their lead speaker on reproductive rights. And I spoke sometimes about personal stuff too, but reproductive rights were a big passion for me. It was at a time in Los Angeles, also when